Welcome back. Now, tributes continue to pour in for the AmaZulu Prime Minister, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. We unpack the legacy he built and reflect on the time that he served as Home Affairs Minister in the cabinet of President Nelson Mandela. Buthelezi held this position for 10 years alongside Director-General Albert Mokoena, who joins me now to reflect on the time. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Mokoena. We do appreciate it. You worked very closely with Mangosuthu Buthelezi. I'm sure you have many memories. Maybe just speak to us about what you are going to remember about Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
Well, good evening to the viewers. Most of what I remember is the type of a leader that he was, leaderful leader who gave me an opportunity to do my job without any pressure from himself. In fact, for me, what was important was at the time when new DGs were being recruited into the new government, I was not a member of the IFP, and rather than him going through a process of deploying from his party, the post was advertised, I applied, an independent company interviewed all of us, those that were meeting the requirements, and I managed to get the job. Without him knowing me or having encountered me in his previous life, we did a lot of work together. He gave me a chance and gave me a mandate to say that you need to transform Home Affairs into a department that serves all the citizens of South Africa. He caused us as the department to champion a new system of immigration policy, encouraged me as the DG to ensure that we've got a one national population register that caters for everybody in the country, regardless of race, so that at least I know for a fact that the 1999 elections in South Africa were conducted on the basis of barcoded ID, which was a process which he had encouraged as a department to say that we need to be seen as that department that caters for everybody. I think it is common knowledge for those who followed the story of the barcoded IDs that it was the only department that had received the Batupele recognition from President Mandela. It's the only department then that had managed to successfully win the case in the Constitutional Court, where it demonstrated that we as a department were transforming to make sure that everybody in the country is going to be recognized as a one citizen rather than citizens of different nationalities.
Maybe just also speak to us about the difficulty in having to navigate after 1994, when the country went into a democratic state. It was obviously very complex to navigate. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. And many would argue that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was rather strict and stern. What was your experience like having to navigate pre-1994 with the Prince?
Well, he was a firm leader, principled, very passionate about good governance, strict, and ensured that even when he had a deputy minister, initially it was Deputy Minister Penuel Maduna and then Deputy Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, who were not from his political party, his insistence when he spoke to me as the DG, who did not even come from his party, was that we've got to make sure that the interests of the citizens of the country and those that wants to come into the country are priority in terms of what we do. But he was a firm, ethical leader who I knew as I worked under him that I could trust the leadership that he gave to me. Obviously, it had a lot of challenges in the cabinet. He'd come back to me and say, DG, I've been to a cabinet meeting through this that I'm trying to push. But I'm getting support. Sometimes I don't get as much support as I want. But he knew that he had a lot of support from the president, then Mandela, and then Mbeki. So it's been quite a journey during the navigations. You know, when we had press conferences, I would have him on the one side as the minister from the IFP and the deputy minister from the ANC, whose parties, both parties' policies would sometimes not be congruent, but he would encourage to make sure that at least when we present a position to the country, we present that which is seen by the nation to be at least putting the country first.
Mr. Mokoena, I also want to speak about what your views are around his complex legacy. Many would argue that he should have accounted or at least acknowledged or apologized even for the atrocities that we saw with the massacres in Gauteng. You know, was that a conversation that you ever had with him? Did you ever get that personal and, you know, have that conversation around how he was accused of being central to those massacres?
Well, I think firstly, let me say, when I applied for the position of the Director-General at Home Affairs, I was aware that Mangosuthu Buthelezi was the Minister of Home Affairs. But I didn't go into that position on the basis of what politics were around, but it was on the basis of what is it that the department or the minister might want to achieve. I've tried, and even after I left the Department of Home Affairs, Mangosuthu requested me to come to the IFP to become their national galvanizer in 2009 for their elections. And even now, he did ask me to come over to assist them in the party as the Chief Operations Officer to make sure that systems are in place. So in terms of the narratives of what might have happened in terms of him as a leader and the alleged atrocities, we never entered that space because for me, I've worked with him as a leader. I've worked with him as a human being who was passionate about uniting the country. I've heard a lot of what people talk about, did my research, speak to a lot of people who would, in some instances, even say, are you quite okay to work in KZN? And I would say, of course, yes, I worked for Mangosuthu. What people are talking about, some of it I cannot relate to because when I work with him, he's like a father to me. But I know he's like a father to the nation. And in terms of where I am now, assisting them as the IFP, I'm quite confident that every time that he has deployed me to do work for him, he has never even suggested to me that there must be any un-nation-building projects or processes or issues that he believes he may have done, which I might feel ashamed to be associated with him.
Just lastly, Mr. Mokoena, I want to ask you about the way forward for the IFP, given the fact that Mangosuthu Buthelezi was so critical and integral in the leadership of the IFP and really only stepping down in 2019. What do you see the IFP looking like, you know, with their founder being no more?
Well, you know, quite recently, I'll just quote, the family wrote to us as the IFP leadership to say that His Excellency wishes that we are able to proceed to make sure that the work of the IFP, which is determined to ensure that the people of the country are served properly, especially, you know, now knowing that the IFP has got a lot of municipalities that they run in KZN. His wishes has been that as the IFP, we must unite. As the IFP, we must be a solution to the stresses or confrontations that people are receiving. As the IFP, we must not be seen as the party that is going to divide the nation or the country even further. So in terms of the way forward for the IFP, I'm quite positive that even what has happened now will unite us further to make sure that at least we converge, whether we are part of the moonshot or the agreement that has just been entered. The idea of the IFP now is to make sure that we become a solution of good governance, of looking after our people, of service delivery, and make sure his legacy that he has always fought for, besides the vilifications, that the IFP becomes the hero in championing the needs of our people.
Sorry, I quickly want to speak about the governance lessons that you learned from Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, especially, you know, coming from KwaZulu-Natal, moving into a national space, being the DG of Home Affairs. What governance lessons did you learn from the Prince?
Well, the one thing as the DG, I knew that submissions do not spend 24 hours on my desk, because with him, they never spend 24 hours. So I knew that attention to detail was very important, but compliance was key, because even when I came to assist them with the IP and joined the National Executive Committee, it has always been important that he says, the Constitution is your guideline. Whatever you do as the party, as the leaders, make sure that you've got a point of reference against which you perform your duties. So what lessons that I've got from him: attention to detail, good governance, be trustworthy, know that whatever you do, there is a point of reference that at least you can be able to say, I have administered whatever you need in terms of the laws of the country or the Constitution or whatever the case is, and that's what I've enjoyed working under him.
I'm curious to know what you think of the Department of Home Affairs right now, Mr. Mokoena, given that you're saying that submissions wouldn't be on your table for longer than 24 hours.
Well, under his leadership, submissions would not sit on my table, neither on his table, for longer than 24 hours. He was very much opposed to huge backlogs. I was trying to earlier state the fact that, you know, prior to the 1999 elections, there was an issue about barcoded IDs. As you know, previously, well, before 1994, we had two different population registers. And the point for 1999 was whether or not Home Affairs would be capable, if barcoded IDs are introduced, to deliver IDs barcoded to every citizen before the elections. There were tight deadlines. We had to go to the courts, different courts, until the Constitutional Court, where through his insistence and trying to make sure that you do your job accordingly, you stick the deadlines. If I were to refer and talk about Home Affairs, now I'm not inside the system now, but the backlogs that they alleged to be having now, we never had those, even if we're coming from a complex Department of Home Affairs.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Mokoena, if you ever had a conversation or part of the conversations around the soldiers that were sent to Lesotho. Did you ever have a conversation with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi about that?
No, because it wasn't my space to do that. I was the DG for Home Affairs and not in the political space of discussing issues that were not relevant to my job.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights this evening. We do appreciate it. That was Albert Mokoena, who is the former Director-General who worked alongside Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi when he was Home Affairs Minister. We'll be back after this.